So coming on to what children understand about death when they reach about 6 years old, up to the age of probably 9 or 10. At this stage, they're just beginning to understand what death means in terms of the finality of it. That there really isn't any coming back. Up until that age, children will often say, when will we see this person again? Or, what do you think they're doing now? And so forth. But when they reach a slightly older stage of development, they begin to understand that the death state is permanent, but they also understand, and this is really important, that death is inevitable, that we all die. And if you think about that, I mean, it's something that we know, but that we live without dwelling on as adults. But, as a child, to realise that's a huge thing, and it's a very, very scary thought. And so often it can be really quite overwhelming for a child to suddenly realise that not only do people die, but everybody that they know is going to die, including themselves. So suddenly an awareness of their own mortality. And if the person that's died has died of illness, then they can become very worried about any symptoms that they see in themselves. Is the same thing going to happen to them, or that they see with their parents, people closely around them? They'll ask lots of questions, and of course at this age they ask lots of questions about everything. But when they're talking about death, that can be really difficult for the adults around, because it could be exhausting, particularly if you're grieving yourself, to have to keep answering questions. But it's important to be clear, to be direct, and to give answers. And if there are times where you really can't go there, then saying to a child, we will talk about this, I will answer your questions, I just can't do it right now, is better than trying to change the subject or put them off, or make them feel bad for asking. Another thing that's very common at this age is separation anxiety. I mean, if you've lost a parent or a grandparent who's very important to you, it would be natural, I suppose, to cling on to the people who are around you, because you certainly don't want anything to happen to them. So becoming very clingy, and in normal times this might manifest as not being willing to go to school, not being able to sleep in your own bed, not being able to go upstairs to bed at bedtime, and so forth. So separation anxiety is usually temporary, and it does ease when the child begins to feel more secure. So at the beginning it's fine to accommodate it. It's a sort of regression into a time when they felt more secure. If it goes on for too long, then of course that's something else. That's a more complicated grief response, but it is natural at this age group, certainly in the first few weeks after a loss. The other thing to say is that children will learn their grieving behaviour from the adults around them. So if the child is in a family where everybody is very expressive about how they feel, they will tend to be that way themselves. Whereas if they're in a family where it's not usual to talk about how you're feeling or to show your emotion, then similarly they will follow suit. So we have to be a little bit careful about what behaviours we model. And sometimes we need to if you like, give the child permission to talk about how they feel. This is, often a child will try hard to protect the adults around them from getting upset. And one of the difficulties in a family when there's been a bereavement is that people spark each other's grief reactions off. And so children can sense that they don't want to say anything. They'll often say, I don't want to say anything because I don't want to upset mummy or daddy or whoever. So they sometimes need to be told that it's okay. It's really okay to be sad, and it's okay to talk about it from time to time. And one of the things that we can do is to model that. So not pretending to a child that we're perfectly all right when we're not. But actually, obviously, we can't allow our children to see us completely overwhelmed with grief, because that's going to make them feel very insecure. But allowing them to see that all people feel sad at times. And yes, adults feel sad too, and that it's okay, it's not overwhelming. And then when a child feels those feelings, they don't think, oh, I shouldn't be feeling this, or this is strange that I'm feeling like this, but they can see that it's a normal part of life, and that it won't overwhelm them, that they will be okay. So in a way, you're helping them to self-regulate, and you're helping to contain their emotions by showing them that you could contain your own. It's also important with children to think about the language that we use, so not being judgmental about grief reactions. One of the things that people often say, which they think is helpful, is to say, oh, you're being so brave, what a big brave girl you are, or what a big brave boy you are. And actually this is really not helpful, because the message that you're giving is you mustn't feel how you're feeling. It would be weak, or it would be not okay to be upset. You've got to be brave. And in fact, it doesn't stop a child from feeling terrible and feeling sad. All it then does is make them feel guilty about feeling sad. And so we need to be careful about the messages that we give children of this age and what we say, because they're very much going to be affected by what we model and what we say to them and our reactions to their grief.